All right, so I apologize for the couple hours that it took me to get this up this week. This was something that I tried to record at home, and my dogs kept barking, so I just finally said I'm just going to wait till I get into work on Monday. So um, I wanted to walk through the Credo assignment with you for a little bit. Wanted to make sure that you had a solid understanding of what it was that my expectations were as far as this assignment was concerned. This is going to be due on November the 19th. So this is your last major assignment for the course. I know it's kind of crazy to think that we're already looking forward to that kind of thing, but I wanted to make sure it was on your radar as well. So this is the week before finals is what this is going to be for you. This is going to be a minimum of 4 pages, 4 full pages. You should be able to easily reach 4 full pages if you are actually giving this assignment the attention that it needs. I'm also going to set a maximum page limit on this. In the past, I haven't necessarily done that, like with your What in the World project and that kind of thing. But keep in mind that with 60 students, I'm gonna be grading until my brain just won't function anymore, basically, if I don't put a maximum limit on this. So maximum of 7 pages on this assignment. You're also going to want to make sure that you have at least 3 sources that you're citing as you do this paper. A Bible and a faith called Christianity are certainly 2 of those sources that you can use. And that just makes it kind of easy for you as far as finding sources is concerned. The last source that you will probably want to consider is something like a book that has really just made an impact on your personal theology, your personal understanding of who God is or who God is not. Your personal theology has probably been supplemented by something along the way. If you are not necessarily Christian, maybe your book of choice would be like Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, something like that. Whatever it is that has made the biggest impact on you, use that as your third source. And you don't necessarily have to use the Bible and a faith called Christianity as your first 2 sources. If you have 3 entirely different sources that you want to use, go ahead and use those. That's totally fine. A lot of these are for the purpose of just kind of being able to supplement and show that you understand some stuff that we talked about in class. So first section of this paper, you're going to talk about your religious background or lack thereof. You may not have any sort of religious background whatsoever, but we kind of want to be able to see what got you to where you are today. What is it that you walked through that brought you to where you are spiritually right now? If you grew up in a particular denomination of the church, go ahead and talk about that. Go ahead and talk about what your experience was as a Baptist or a Methodist or a Presbyterian or whatever it may have been. You also want to talk about some of the spiritual memories that you may have. Some people, they may say, well, I had a vision of Jesus when I was in 8th grade, and that just changed my life. That's part of my own personal story. So there are certain times where we'll have spiritual memories that will impact us and that will change kind of the trajectory of our lives. So if you have something like that, it doesn't have to be on that kind of level. I'm just saying, if you have something along those lines, maybe it's something like I just remember feeling really different after I got baptized. That's certainly a spiritual memory. So if that's the case for you, go ahead and talk about that in this religious background section as well. Second section of this paper is the doctrinal statement. We want to make sure that you understand from this class what Christianity teaches. And that's kind of the major purpose of this assignment. And so when you look at the rubric for this, this is like 40 points out of 100 on this paper. The majority of what you are graded on is this doctrinal statement section, because we want to be able to see that you can, first of all, articulate what Christianity believes, because that's what we've studied in this course. We want to know that you can articulate what Christianity believes, and then that you can also compare that with what your own personal beliefs are. So, we want to make sure that you have a solid understanding of what Christianity thinks going out of this course. That's kind of what the purpose of this assignment is. So you want to talk about God. You want to talk about how we understand God as far as His nature is concerned. You also want to talk about human nature, things like the nature of sin and pride and all those kinds of things. You also want to talk about God's communication with humanity through prayer, through Scripture, those kinds of things. You also want to talk about the meaning of human life. Why do we actually say in Christianity that we're here? And then finally, talk a little bit about the afterlife. What is it that Christians hold to be true about what takes place at the end? We will talk about. We will have talked about all of these things. We will have talked about all of these things by the end of the semester and by the time that this paper is due. So make sure that you are walking through these things. And I'll also tell you, if you get to a place where you feel like you want to go ahead and write on a particular topic that we haven't necessarily discussed in class yet, just go ahead and check out your syllabus and read ahead in A Faith Called Christianity, and that'll probably tell you kind of what the thinking is there within Christianity. So you don't necessarily have to wait until I have covered a topic. Talk a little bit about, actually talk as much as you can about the contrast or comparison with your own beliefs as far as Orthodox Christianity is concerned. Do you go right along with every single belief that is considered to be a part of the church? Or do you have your own stuff? Do you have your own ways in which you differ with Christianity? Talk about that. The third section there is some application. How does all of this stuff, how do all of your beliefs relate to your daily life? So for me, for instance, I pray on a daily basis. And there are certain things that I am trying to make sure that I'm growing spiritually every day. Those kinds of things. Talk about some of those and talk about how your beliefs impact your daily life. Then in the fourth section there, you're going to talk about some of the ethical considerations that you need to be dealing with as you really just you kind of walk through life itself. Whether you have a spiritual background or not, every one of us, our spiritual background or lack of spiritual background impacts our ethics. And we'll talk more about ethics a little later on in the semester, but I want to make sure that you're aware that especially when we get to the section on ethics, you can be paying close attention so that you can kind of compare your own views with our ethical considerations. Finally, just kind of wrap up your paper with something pretty brief, a brief conclusion, just kind of summarizing everything. It's a useful thing to kind of take the Nicene Creed or Apostles' Creed or whatever it is, some of the creeds that we've talked about in class, and just kind of use those as some jumping off points to talk about your own beliefs. Use those, and you can kind of modify those to make something of a creed of your own. That's kind of a helpful way to end this paper. Not a necessary thing, but it's kind of an interesting way to end it, I think. So this is something that you are going to be able to tackle starting now, and I would recommend that you do that. So this is, again, due on November the 29th. November the 19th. November the 19th is the due date of this assignment. And I look forward to seeing what you produce.